One of the most confusing words in the whole origins debate is the word evolution. It sounds simple, but it is not. People use the same word to mean very different things. And once those meanings get mixed together, the conversation becomes almost impossible to follow. That is why the first question should not be, do you believe in evolution? The first question should be, what exactly do you mean by evolution? That one question changes the whole discussion, because there is not just one meaning attached to the word. There are several. And if we do not separate them, someone can show you one kind of change that is real, and then use it to make you accept 5 other claims that have never been observed. So in this video, I want to slow the word down. I want to separate the meanings, because once you define the terms, the debate becomes much clearer. The first meaning is cosmic evolution. This is the idea that time, space, and matter came into existence through a natural process, usually connected with the Big Bang. In other words, it tries to explain where the universe came from. I do not accept that as science in the observational sense. Nobody observed the origin of time, space, and matter. Nobody ran that event in a laboratory. It is a belief about the beginning. It is an origin story. The second meaning is chemical evolution. According to the usual Big Bang model, the early universe produced mostly hydrogen and maybe some helium. But then we have to ask a simple question. Where did all the other elements come from? Do you want me to believe uranium evolved from hydrogen? Some will say fusion in stars. But that answer raises more questions. You cannot fuse past iron very well, and you also run into a chicken and egg problem. You need stars to make elements, but you need elements to make stars. So which came first? That brings us to the third meaning, stellar evolution. This is the idea that stars formed naturally from matter and space. But here's the problem. We see stars blow up. We call that a nova, or if it is large enough, a supernova. That happens. But we do not observe stars forming in the same clear way. There are enormous numbers of stars out there, more than the mind can comfortably imagine. And still, the origin of stars remains a major question. If someone says stars evolved, I want to know exactly what was observed and what was assumed. The fourth meaning is organic evolution. This is the idea that life came from non-living material. That is not a small step. That is not just a chemical reaction. That is the claim that dead matter somehow became living matter. Life is not just material. Life has information. Life has organization. Life has systems that depend on other systems. A living cell is not just a blob of chemicals. It is an incredibly complex structure. So when someone says life evolved from non-life, I want to ask how. Not with vague words, not with imagination. How did non-living material become a living organism? The fifth meaning is macroevolution. This is the idea that one kind of animal changes into a completely different kind of animal. Not just variation inside a group. Not just a big dog or a small dog. I mean a change from one basic kind into another. Nobody has ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. You can get a big dog, a little dog, a long-haired dog, a short-haired dog, a strong dog, or a tiny dog. But you still get a dog. It may be true that the dog, the wolf, and the coyote had a common ancestor. I would not argue strongly against that. They are very similar. They are the same general kind of animal. Even a child can see that a dog, a wolf, and a coyote belong together in a way that a banana clearly does not. That simple distinction matters. A dog and a wolf may be different species, but they're still the same created kind. The Bible says animals bring forth after their kind. That is a much more basic category than the modern word species. Darwin's famous book was called The Origin of Species. But species and kind are not always the same thing. You can have different species inside the same kind. That does not prove that one kind of creature turned into another kind. Then we come to the sixth meaning, microevolution. This means change within a kind. This one happens. I have no problem with this meaning. Animals can produce variety. You can get long hair, short hair, long legs, short legs, different colors, different sizes, and the different traits. That is observable. That is real. That is not the issue. The issue is that people take examples of microevolution and then act as if those examples prove all the other meanings. They show variation within a kind, then use that as evidence for cosmic evolution, chemical evolution, stellar evolution, organic evolution, and macroevolution. That is the trick. If you show me that dogs can produce different kinds of dogs, I agree. If you show me that birds can have different beaks, I agree. If you show me that living things can adapt, I agree. But that does not prove the universe created itself. It does not prove life came from non-life. It does not prove one kind of animal became a different kind. It does not prove man came from animals. It only proves that living things can vary within limits. This is why definitions matter so much. If someone asks, "Do you believe in evolution?" I cannot answer honestly until I know which meaning they're using. If they mean microevolution, yes, changes within kind happen. If they mean the whole story that everything came from nothing, life came from non-life, and all creatures share a common ancestor, no, I do not accept that. Those are different claims. They should not be hidden under one word. This confusion is especially dangerous in education. Students are often told to believe that the Earth is billions of years old and that life evolved on Earth. But they're not always taught to separate observation from interpretation. They're not always told which kind of evolution is being discussed. Science class should be about things we can observe, learn, study, test, and demonstrate. It should not train students to accept a worldview without question. Real science is not afraid of definitions. Real science is not afraid of careful distinctions. If we're talking about observable variation, let us call it that. If we're talking about the origin of the universe, that is another topic. If we're talking about life coming from non-life, that is another topic. If we're talking about one kind of animal turning into another, that is another topic. Do not let one word carry 6 different meanings without challenge. There's also a deeper issue underneath this. If matter cannot be created or destroyed in the ordinary natural processes we observe, then we have to ask where everything came from. Everything around us is made of matter. The world exists. We exist. So the question cannot be avoided. Either somebody made the world or the world made itself. Those are the 2 basic options. The Bible says God created the heaven and the earth. The humanist worldview says the universe is self-existing and not created. But that is not neutral science. That is a belief about ultimate reality. So when people use the word evolution, listen carefully. Ask what they mean. Ask what has been observed. Ask what has been assumed. Ask whether the evidence proves the claim being made. Because most of the time, the evidence offered is only evidence for variation within kinds. And there is no argument there. That happens. But variation within a kind is not proof that everything came from nothing. It is not proof that chemicals became life. It is not proof that animals changed into completely different kinds. It is not proof that man is just an evolved animal. The real issue is not whether living things can change. They can. The real issue is whether those changes can explain the origin of everything without God. That is a very different question. So the next time someone asks, "Do you believe in evolution?" do not rush to answer. Ask the better question first. Which evolution are we talking about?